The winter sun hung low over the city of Mumbai, casting long shadows that stretched across the Marine Drive promenade like dark fingers reaching for the sea. In the back of a sleek black Mercedes Maybach, Vikram Rajvansh scrolled through his phone with the lazy disinterest of a man who had seen it all. At 43, he was the CEO of Rajvansh Industries, a conglomerate that had its fingers in everything from steel to telecommunications. His net worth fluctuated by millions every hour, and a fact that usually amused him. He was returning from a meeting at the Air India building, a potential acquisition that would add an airline to his empire, and the taste of victory was still fresh in his mouth. The car glided to a halt at a signal near the Regal Cinema, and Vikram's gaze drifted out the tinted window. He saw the chaos of the city he both loved and loathed. The hawkers, the taxis, the sea of humanity that moved and swelled like the very ocean beside them. He felt a familiar sense of separation, of being insulated from it all by a layer of bulletproof glass and unimaginable wealth. His destination was not his office in the lower Parel district, but his newly acquired property, a heritage palace tucked away in the bylanes of Colaba. It wasn't a home, it was a trophy. A piece of history that had once belonged to a royal family, now converted into a private event space for the city's crème de la crème. As the car turned into the narrow lane leading to the palace's grand wrought-iron gates, Vikram didn't bother to look up. He expected the gates to swing open instantly, a salute to his arrival. But they didn't. The car slowed to a halt, the engine purring softly. Vikram frowned, his eyes still on his phone. "Why have we stopped?" he asked his driver, his voice laced with impatience. The driver, a man named D'Souza, who had been with the family for 20 years, stammered, "Sir, the new gate." "It's closed. The guard is coming." Vikram finally looked up. Through the windshield, he saw the massive gates, intricately designed with iron peacocks, firmly shut. Walking towards the car was a man in a crisp khaki uniform. He was tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of a life of physical labor, and a face that held the calm, steady gaze of someone who had served in the forces. This was Gurnam Singh, a former army soldier who had taken up a private security job to support his aging parents and fund his younger sister's education. He had been hired by the security agency contracted to manage the palace, and for him, this was more than just a job, it was a point of pride. He was responsible for the sanctity of a heritage property, and his instructions were clear: no entry without verification, regardless of the vehicle. Gurnam approached the driver's side window, his posture upright. D'Souza rolled it down. "Sahib, ye Rajvansh Industries ke CEO hain. Gate kholo," the driver said with a practiced air of authority. Gurnam didn't flinch. He bent slightly to look past the driver at the figure in the back seat. "Good evening, sir," he said, his voice polite but firm. "May I see your ID card or the entry pass for the vehicle? It is protocol." From the back, Vikram let out a short, sharp laugh of disbelief. He leaned forward, his expensive cologne filling the small space. "Do you know who I am? I own this building. I don't need a pass." Gurnam remained unmoved. "Sir, I have been instructed by the agency and the owner's office that no vehicle enters without verification. There have been incidents in the area. If you are the owner, you will have the pass." His logic was irrefutable, his tone respectful. He was not being insolent, he was being dutiful. Vikram felt a hot flush of irritation creep up his neck. This was an affront to his status. He was used to doors opening, quite literally, at the mention of his name. He was Vikram Rajvansh. His face was on the covers of business magazines, and here was a common security guard, a man who probably earned in a month what Vikram spent on a single bottle of wine, questioning his right to enter his own property. "I am not carrying a plastic card to prove who I am to you," Vikram snapped, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. Now open the gate, or there will be consequences. Gurnham straightened up. He looked at the driver, then back at the tinted glass behind which the voice of power resided. Sir, I am just doing my job. Until I see the pass or until I receive a call from the control room confirming your entry, the gate stays closed. This was the final straw. For Vikram, it was no longer about entering the building. It was about power. It was about teaching a lesson to a subordinate who dared to defy him. And he had built an empire by crushing opposition, by asserting dominance. He saw the same challenge here. With a swift, violent motion, Vikram shoved his door open. The heavy door swung outwards, catching Gurnham on the hip and pushing him back a step. Before the guard could regain his balance, Vikram was out of the car, his polished leather shoes standing inches from Gurnham's worn-out boots. "You want to see who I am?" Vikram seethed, his face twisted in anger. In the heat of the moment, driven by an ego that could not tolerate a scratch, he drew back his right hand. The sound was sickeningly loud in the quiet lane. His open palm connected with the side of Gurnham's face with a crack that echoed off the palace walls. Gurnham's head snapped to the side. He didn't fall. His army training kept him on his feet. But a thin trickle of blood appeared at the corner of his lip where his teeth had cut the inside of his cheek. He slowly turned his head back, his eyes meeting Vikram's. There was no fear in them. There was no anger. There was only a deep, profound sadness and a calm that was far more unsettling than any scream of rage. He simply looked at the man who had just struck him, a look that said, "You have done something you cannot take back." Vikram, breathing heavily, felt a second of what might have been a twinge of shock at his own action, but he quickly smothered it. "D'Souza, call the agency. Get this man removed. Now!" He got back into the car, slamming the door. The gates, perhaps alerted by another guard who had witnessed the scene from a distance, finally creaked open. As the Mercedes rolled through, Vikram refused to look back. Gurnham stood exactly where he was, his hand slowly rising to touch his stinging cheek. He pulled his fingers away and looked at the faint smear of red. In that moment, the palace gates closed behind the car, but for Vikram Rajvansh, the doors to his own comfortable, a consequence-free world had just begun to close as well. The Mercedes disappeared into the sprawling driveway of the palace, leaving Gurnham Singh standing alone in the fading light. The other guard on duty, a young Maharashtrian boy named Suresh, rushed over, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and concern. "Gurnham Bhai, Kaya hua? Who was that?" he stammered, staring at the blood on Gurnham's lip. Gurnham didn't answer immediately. He took a deep, steadying breath, the cool evening air filling his lungs. He felt the sting on his cheek, the phantom ringing in his ear from the force of the blow. For 10 years he had served in the Indian Army, posted in the treacherous heights of Siachen, where the enemy was not just across the border but was the very weather itself. He had faced bullets, avalanches, and the biting cold that could kill a man in hours. He had been taught to endure, to stand his ground, and to never strike a man who was unarmed and defenseless. The man in the car had done exactly that. He had hit him not because he was a threat, but because his ego was bruised. "Nothing, Suresh. He is the owner," Gurnham said quietly, wiping his lip with the back of his hand. "Get back to your post." "But Bhai, he hit you. We should call the police," Suresh insisted, his young sense of justice outraged. Gurnham placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder. "And what will the police do? He is a rich man. They will say it was a misunderstanding. Go." He watched Suresh walk away, then pulled out his simple Nokia phone. He didn't call the police. He called his supervisor at the security agency, a man named Patil. The call was brief and professional. Gurnham reported the incident, stating the facts. The CEO had arrived without a pass, he had followed protocol by denying entry, and the CEO had then struck him. Patil listened, grunted, and then said he would look into it. Gurnham knew what that meant. It meant nothing. He was a replaceable cog in a machine. The CEO was the client. He would be the one to suffer. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Vikram Rajvansh had already forgotten the incident. He was being shown around the grand ballroom by his event manager, discussing the lighting for a New Year's Eve party he was planning. The vaulted ceilings, the crystal chandeliers, and the polished teak floors. It was all a testament to his success. The slight altercation at the gate was a distant, irritating memory, like a mosquito that had been successfully swatted. He made a mental note to call the security agency in the morning and ensure that guard was permanently removed. Insolence could not be tolerated, but the incident was not forgotten by everyone. Suresh, the young guard, was deeply troubled. He idolized Gurnham, and who treated him with kindness and taught him things about discipline and life. Seeing his mentor humiliated burned in his chest. That night, after his shift ended at 10 p.m., he went home to the tiny chawl he shared with his family. He didn't have a smartphone, but his younger brother did. With fumbling fingers, Suresh told his brother the story. The brother, a tech-savvy teenager, was horrified. "This is not right, Bhai. This is a rich man thinking he can do anything. Hey, we should post it online." Suresh was hesitant. "Gurnham Bhai said not to. He said nothing will happen." "Nothing will happen if we stay quiet," the brother argued. "But if people see it, if it goes viral, maybe something will happen." On the brother's phone, they typed out the story in Hindi, a simple, heartfelt account of what Suresh had witnessed. They posted it on a local Mumbai community page on a platform formerly known as Twitter. They didn't have any photos or videos, just words. And the post read, "A security guard at a heritage palace in Colaba was slapped by a rich CEO today for just doing his job. The guard, a former soldier, asked for an ID. The CEO got angry and hit him. His name is Gurnham Singh. This is wrong." They tagged a few local news handles and went to sleep, unsure if anyone would even notice. They noticed. The next morning, the post had exploded. It was shared thousands of times. The raw emotion in the simple narrative struck a chord. In a city where the gap between the rich and the poor was a chasm that could be crossed by few, the story of a humble guard being assaulted by a powerful tycoon became a lightning rod. People were outraged. The lack of video evidence didn't matter. The story had the ring of painful truth. Armchair activists and ordinary citizens demanded justice. They demanded to know the name of the CEO. They demanded to know which palace it was. By midday, but a journalist from a leading daily had tracked down the post and managed to get in touch with Suresh's brother. Suresh, terrified but resolute, agreed to speak on the condition of anonymity. The journalist corroborated the location and the basic facts. The article that was published online an hour later had a slightly more detailed account, though it still refrained from naming Vikram directly, citing unconfirmed reports. But they named the palace. And they described the CEO's company as a major industrial house. Vikram first learned of the trouble not from the news, but from his Gongguan, public relations head, a harried woman named Anjali who called him during a board meeting. "Sir, there's a situation. A story is going viral about you and a security guard at the Colaba Palace." Vikram's mood, which had been buoyant, instantly curdled. "What story?" "It was nothing. The man was rude. I had him removed." Anjali's voice was tense. "Sir, the story is that you slapped him. It's everywhere. People are demanding action. The news channels have picked it up." Vikram stepped